And good morning, everybody. Just letting you know, we are going to wait for a quorum, hopefully. Thank you. Also, I'd like to let folks know Tori has advised me that she's going to be a few minutes late. Folks, for a quick update, we are still going to wait for a quorum. Tori has advised she's going to be a couple minutes late, and Dawn has advised me she's in transit, but she's going to be on here in mute. Okay, everybody, we have 6, and good morning. Zach Hughes. I will be co-chairing today. We're going to get into co-chair a little later in the agenda here. But good morning. I want to start us out with introductions of folks as they come on. Well, yeah. So I'm going to start our introductions. I'm Zach Hughes. I am the current chair, but most likely going to be a co-chair after today or next meeting, depending on what the task force decides to do. So I do a lot of community stuff. I do outreach on a volunteer basis, and I do a lot of work around the community and working in another way. And I will take whoever wants to go next.
I'm Sal Alfano. I'm the City Council representative to the task force.
Thank you. And actually, you know what? I will pick Sophie.
Good morning, Sophie Lewis. I'm a member of the task force and a Montpelier resident, and I will send it to Nolan.
Thank you.
I am Nolan Carver. I'm a member of this task force, a local resident, a community member, psychiatric survivor. Happy to be here. I'll send it to Meredith.
Hey, everybody, Meredith Warner. I work for Good Samaritan Haven. I'm also a Montpelier resident and member of the task force. Jay.
I'm Jay Voorhees. I'm a Montpelier resident, pastor of Trinity United Methodist Church, and an interested observer.
Jay, we would love to have you.
We'll pray about it.
Okay. Did I choose Beverly yet? No, I didn't.
I am Bev Allen. I'm a Montpelier resident and a member of the Montpelier Homelessness Task Force, and also an employee of Good Samaritan Haven. And who else?
Kelly.
Good morning, Kelly Murphy, Assistant City Manager and Staff Liaison to this committee.
Okay, I think that's pretty much it on that. We have Tori, who's going to run a few minutes late, and Dawn's in transit. Okay, so how about we, this time I sent 2 sets of minutes that we can review. If you've already reviewed them, great. At some point I will, or at a point I will entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve both sets of minutes together.
That would be fine. Is that a motion that I'm hearing from you, Meredith? Okay, Meredith motions to approve both sets of minutes for the record 3/19 and 4/2 of 2025 together as a batch. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, abstaining, those minutes, they pass. Okay, today's agenda, going to review it. We are doing introductions, review, and approve the agenda, which we're doing right now. Approve minutes. We did that. We'll do public comment. We'll do task force administration. I'd like to add that in the admin updates, we're going to talk about co-chair again. Then we're going to do, and any other task force admin that people want to bring up. We're going to do updates of street outreach, shelter, hotel, legislative, anything from city council. Then we're going to do announcements and hopefully get adjourned. I'll entertain a motion for approval on that.
Motion to approve.
Yes, for those agendas. And I have a motion, Bev.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you very much, Nolan. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, abstaining. That agenda is approved. Okay, I want to make sure we're good. Public comment. This is a time for the public to comment. We have one member of the public here today, Jay Voorhees. Don't know if you want to say anything right now, Jay, or anyone else in the public. No. Okay. All right. Thank you. And we are going to move into task force admin. I had received an email indicating that the person was interested in co-chairing with me. We talked a while back about the co-chair model. Right now I'm chairing alone because at the time when we transitioned from Meredith needing to just go back to membership, there didn't seem to be interest at that time. maybe because people need to think about it. And well, a couple people have kind of thought about it, and one has volunteered to step forward, and she's not here right now. But what I wanted to say is that I value the co-chair model, and it helps us to continue being able to work together. You know, I've always been able to delegate a chair responsibility to somebody, but it's better to have a co-chair if we can, because you never know. So I don't know if we want to. I can actually hang on. Let me think.
I think-
Sophie.
I think Tori is here. I think
Oh,
I
Tori's
just
here.
saw her.
I can't see anything right now. That's what's going on. You just saw her?
I think I did. Yeah, well, I see her name, but it looks like her video's not on yet.
Okay, maybe that's why I'm not seeing it.
There she is.
Okay, so I have Tori, who has expressed interest after discussion of co-chairing with me, and I didn't know if I could have some. I know you're just settling in, Tori, but I wondered if you could speak to it of your interest.
I don't think I really have anything to add to it. Sophie had asked me would I consider doing it, and I was like, sure. So
Okay. And I think it's
and
valuable.
I'm also happy not to do it. I mean, I think
No.
I think it depends what would serve the committee best. So
What I'd like to actually, because what I understood was that Sophie wanted to nominate, so I'm going to allow Sophie to open up a little bit here.
Sure.
Thank you, Zach. Before I do the nomination, I just want to say I think it's such hard work to run these meetings, and Meredith did an amazing job. You're doing an amazing job. And I agree with you, Zach, that it's very helpful to have kind of a backup, somebody to do it with you. So in that vein, I would like to nominate Tori as co-chair. And I don't know what the protocol is, if there's anything else I need to do.
I don't think so. I think you're asking to nominate Tori, and we've talked about it in soundness. And I'm just since you've nominated her, Tori, I would just to get the discussion going. We'll take a second on that.
I'll second.
Thank you very much, Meredith. And for discussion of any committee members or anyone who wants to discuss this nomination. Okay.
Marty, you're muted.
Marty can't. Yeah,
Sorry,
Marty.
Marty, go ahead. Sorry. Why am I not seeing everybody? Marty, go ahead.
you're muted, Marty.
What's going on here?
I'm sorry, I couldn't get my button undone. I just wanted to say that I'd be happy to have Tori as a co-chair. I think you're thoughtful and organized, and we would do well to have you.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm losing my mic here. Okay, sorry. Okay, so that's great, Marty, and I appreciate that. And I will just close it out by saying that I believe, actually, I've always liked the idea of Tori. I would have approached you at some point, Tori.
Oh, okay.
I just want to say that because I actually have asked you to take over a couple times. And I think it makes sense. We like that co-chair model for a couple of reasons. I worry about if I need to take time away, is that going to affect the chair of the committee? So these are things that we need to a task force. And the work is very important. And I think working together to make it better is great. So
and I think we need, part of what it wasn't something I was particularly looking to do, but I think the more that we're able to make this as inclusive a conversation as possible and inclusive of the community, the better. And I think that usually is served best by having at least a couple of people in leadership of some kind. So
Absolutely. That's great. I mean, and that works because we do need to have that. So any further discussion before we proceed to vote? Okay. All those in favor of Tori becoming a co-chair with myself signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay. All those. Okay. Sophie, you had your hand up.
No, that was a mistake. Sorry about that.
Okay. All those not in favor or abstaining signify. Okay. Okay, the ayes have it. Congratulations. We have a co-chair system again. Thank you,
thanks.
folks. We are moving to.
Can
does
I
anyone
just,
else- Sorry, Mary.
I have one more thing for
Yes.
admin, just
Yeah, I was
notice,
about to go there.
just an apology for my absence and just kind of a general notice to the group that I continue to have to take some time off periodically for some health problems. So just,
Okay.
if I'm just not here, that's likely why.
Okay, that's appreciative, and we continue to value your presence, whether you're here or not. I do appreciate that. Does anyone else have any task force admin at this time? Okay. Moving to updates. I wondered, Meredith, if we could start with your portion if you have it.
Sure. What is my portion?
I'm sorry. I guess I've always liked you giving shelter updates and hotel stuff.
Okay. Shelter updates. We, because of the motel exits, we've been at capacity for 6 or 7 days in a row, at least for at least 2 of our shelters. Just keep in mind that one of our shelters is a recovery oriented shelter. So it's a very specific person that would have access to that site. And we're still, it was just really great. It was just really great timing that we had so many folks move out into the new downstreet space when they did, because that allowed us to move some folks from the motels into the shelter, which has been great. But that certainly does not account for everyone. I've been periodically out of work. And so I have not been super engaged with the motel conversations, but I can tell you what I do know, which is that many folks were given, because of the governor's executive order, a new administrative process needed to be put in place to help the state understand the new guideline that he refined by making that order. And so like, for instance, a person who, say, was 65 years old with dementia would have been able to stay in the motel prior, but now is not. So the categories tightened again, and determining who fits in requires providers being able to attest to people's well-being. And that's been a process of both our motel staff as well as a lot of volunteers who have supported us at the motels to help get the forms filled out. And then on top of that, because of that bureaucratic process needing to be put in place, the state gave a 7-day reprieve to many folks who were anticipating needing to fill out that paperwork. So the large majority of the exits didn't start happening, I think, until this week, but my sense of time is a little bit warped. So don't take that at for fact. So similar to other motel exits, it's been, instead of like a mass exodus, it's been more of a trickle of folks. And we've been trying to mitigate that with a variety of methods, which includes moving people into the shelters when possible. We have been supporting people with camping gear when possible, if that's useful to them. we've also supported some individuals to with transportation to help them reunite to a family or community of origin that might be able to support them in some way. So that being said, in addition to the executive order that we also fell to a new cap, a lower cap, which means it's been a little bit of a free for all because even for some people who do still fit the governor's order, there just aren't enough rooms available. And so that's causing a lot of distress because of course those people are, as you can imagine, the just highly vulnerable individuals. So, we're just continuing to do that work. And I don't know if anybody has questions about motel stuff. I can answer as best I can.
I have a comment of something that the advocacy community is following very closely. You mentioned that 65-year-old with dementia example. One of the concerns the advocacy community is following is AHS has indicated that Agency of Human Services through Chris Winters has indicated that if Chris Winters is the DCF commissioner, that if folks who are on choices for care, and I'm not going to get too deep because health is a deep subject, but I will say if you have a choices for care voucher and there's a nursing home bed, they might say to you, Zach, we have a nursing home bed for you. And I might say, forget it. And they're going to say, then you're out of housing. That is concerning to our advocacy community from disability side and psychiatric side because that violates Olmstead. So we're really concerned, but we haven't heard of any cases as of yet that this has happened. But in an email, which some of us have gotten, it has been indicated. And in that email, Chris says, well, the legislature said that the statute says if they can find an alternative home, place, they need to take it. I'm not so sure, for the record, that nursing homes was in the legislature's site, but we'll wait and see what happens. But I just wanted to throw that out there. And I'm not sure, Meredith, are we seeing anything yet on that? Or anybody getting told they need to go to a nursing home or else?
Well, I mean, we definitely have instances of that. I know the ones that come to mind for me are actually in the shelters, but I'm sure actually, no, that's true. I know I can think of somebody specifically in the motels as well. And there's, I think the one thing that's really challenging is that people's unique circumstances often drive their decision making, right? So you might currently be in a motel room that's within proximity to your family of origin, and that might be really important. That might be life-saving, in fact, in many cases, and you might be offered a nursing care room in Brattleboro or Bennington. And that can be really terrifying for someone who's at that stage in their life. And so one of the things we've been trying to do is just work with our partners as best as possible to locate the right options, but that often takes time, as you know. So those are just some of the complicating factors. But I really appreciate the disability rights piece, Zach. And if you can forward me anything that comes down the line from that world to me, that'd be super helpful.
Okay, I can forward you what I got so far after the meeting, so that you have it.
And I did want to share a couple things about legislative stuff, if now's an okay time for that.
Yeah, you can go ahead now if you want with that.
The one thing I wanted to raise and to just invite people to keep their eyes peeled for media about it is H91, which Teresa Wood helped pass last week, which is it's shared as kind of a remedy to the motel program, but in fact, what it does is it moves the kind of oversight and funding mechanism of the HOP grant, which is the primary grant that funds shelter provision across the state, into the hands of the CAP agencies. And in the case of Washington County, that's Capstone Community Action. And there is a lot of concern from shelter providers that our input was not sought, or even when it was provided without being sought, was not taken into consideration about this this new configuration. And I think, just speaking for myself, my primary concern is I feel like it's an abdication of state responsibility. That's it is the state's job to go through the process of understanding its constituencies' desires and utilizing funding mechanisms to try and meet those. And in this case, it steps the process down into another layer of bureaucracy. And it also puts it into an ecosystem of partnerships. So Capstone is Good Samaritan's partner, and now our relationship will be much shifted in terms of how we engage with them and can work and partner with them. So I'll just invite you to keep your eyes open for media about that, because I think it's important that shelter providers be at least given an opportunity to comment on this change that we so far have not been allowed to do.
Okay, I'm sorry. I have a question from Tori. And just be advised, I'm not able to see everybody. So if someone wants to message me that there's a hand up, please let me know, because I tried different modes here. Go ahead, Tori.
Meredith, there's been a question, Marty might have more to say about this. There's been a question that's been raised repeatedly about how Vermont Interfaith Action is relating to H91. And I think there's a lot of unclarity about that. And also a letter that was circulated by Frank Knack a few days ago, that there was a lot of back and forth about whether BIA was going to sign off. And I don't think that they did, but I think it was in part just through not really knowing enough. So if you have any thoughts from your experience, either at Good Sam or in the larger ecosystem, about how faith groups could most usefully relate. Actually, if Jay is still here, he would have more to add to that also, I think. Thank you. Yes, you're here. That's great.
I don't really know if I have more to add to that, other than there was a letter, and Meredith, I don't know if you saw it, by Frank Knapp and I think HHAV, related to H91. And there were some sort of logistical concerns that we brought up around VIA. One was that we had spoken pretty negatively about the governor's order. And so that letter seems to have sort of affirmed the government's executive order power, which we questioned. Then we also, for me, the question in that letter is, I felt like it was an unrealistic ask, in the sense that what it asks for is the creation of non-congregant shelters, which is great and I love, and I just don't think is the government. That's not going to happen. I don't think that's realistic where we sit at this time. That's a long-term solution. That's not a short-term one. And so, and then there were some other questions related to just how we function with VIA. So we have generally been supportive of H91 in theory, yeah, but I do think that there are questions to be answered along the way. And I don't disagree with you that it is punting the responsibility from the state into these community action organizations. But it seems pretty clear to me that that's the governor's intention, and there's probably not going to be a lot of movement from him related to that. He's pretty well dug in his heels. So that's how I interpret it at this point.
Yeah, I'll just say again, there's a gap in my understanding because of the time off I've had to take, and so I don't have all of the details. My focus has been on my understanding is more around the challenging relationships that that ensue from shifting that ecosystem of partnerships in the communities. And so again, I'll just I do think there probably will be some meaningful reporting about it in the upcoming week. So I think we should all just listen and pay attention to how we think it might impact Central Vermont.
I'm wondering too, and not to put Kelly on the spot, but from y'all's perspective in the city, at the city level, what do y'all have a position on H91 and what you're hearing out of it?
I wish I had something to share. I don't. We don't have an official position on that bill.
This is Zach, and I think H91's I've got to look at the bill again, but this idea of caps doing it has been talked about before, and I can tell you what happened when it was talked about. Caps said they were not ready to do that. So this has been a concern for actually many years because there's different attempts being made to kind of shed the state of this responsibility. But even a legislator I met with said that it is a state responsibility still. And so we can keep an eye on that for sure.
And I think just to bring it down to the level of this task force and Montpelier locally, it's for us to all, as there's writing and understanding that occurs from its impact, is to understand how it will actually change how we can deliver services to people in Central Vermont and in Montpelier with need, and to really assess it based on whether or not that's an improvement of quality of support and care. So that I just wanted to narrow it to that for a second.
And I'm going to also narrow it a little bit more and say, well, not narrow it, but also add that it's going to trickle down to the other organizations, regardless of whether it's CAP's responsibility to do the big thing. We're going to still be getting trickled on because we're doing the work, as well as the CAPs, but we're going to have to shift and say, well, call the CAPs or do whatever they say in that regard. So it's not just CAPs alone here.
For me, and again, I'm an outsider, I fully admit it, moving into the state, my only thought in this is there is an argument to be made for more local control or input because every region and every town and every city is different. We are somewhat unique in the state having as active a role in dealing with homelessness from what I've seen in other states. It tends to be more locally focused. And in the states where they're doing something, it's more about funding than it is actual operation. So it does, I guess what I'm responding to is I often hear an argument that, well, we don't need to let the state off the hook. And I get that. I understand what folks are saying in that. I also wonder at some point if that doesn't become sort of a reflexive response rather than saying, is there a better way to do things? I don't know that H91 is. I agree, Meredith, it's going to mess with y'all's relationship. I think the different community advocacy or the CAP organizations probably differ throughout the state and how functional they are in some places and not as functional in other places. And I think that makes it a little bit scary.
Also, I wanted to add to that, though, the CAPS would likely get state funding to carry that out. So it's still a state thing. We're not, and so that's not going to entirely disappear is what I meant to say. I think that's interesting. I forgot what else I was going to say, but the whole idea that it's funding, because it's going to come from the state. Oh, I know what I was going to say, and I've said it many times in here and on my show as well, that Vermont actually funds nonprofits to do the work. So this isn't a terrible surprise necessarily. It's just going to be asking some of them to do more. Thanks.
Zach, if I could.
Absolutely. Yes.
this is getting pretty granular and I don't want to extend the conversation here necessarily. And Meredith mentioned that there will maybe be some things written in the press, but I'm curious if there is a place where the pros and cons of this are kind of laid out. No, because it sounds like the differences are nuanced and I'm having trouble understanding them, but I'll wait to see what the coverage is. I don't want to extend into our time together. Thanks.
Okay, and I don't know if maybe it might be helpful to check the bill out too. I don't know if that might help.
Bev has her hand up.
Sorry, who does?
Bev.
I'm sorry, Bev, I don't see you from here, but Bev, go ahead.
I don't know why my hand thing's not working, but whatever. I just want to like toss in that, I have someone at the day shelter who became homeless in Lamoille County, then moved to Washington County, and has been on the wait list at Capstone for a case manager for months. That's all I got on that.
Yeah, that's the other side of it, Bev. Okay, I think at least I hear you, and I don't know if the rest hear you on that, but I hear you on that because But anyway, yeah, and we'll just at this point I'm going to pull us back a little bit, and we can keep following this and share with each other. Okay, we are gonna move into street outreach. I don't have Don here, so I'm going to do the best I can with what I've got. We continue to function, usually on a 24-hour basis, with OSA and Don doing overnight stuff that I don't really do. But the thing is, we're seeing different things out there. One of the things I'm seeing is that that we've responded to a couple requests for to go out to check on people in sensitive areas. We responded to both requests, and by the time we got there, they were gone. We generally speaking, that would be my concern as we go into summer. We'll see that more. So I expect to see that, and also, we continue to obviously get other situations, but I usually like to defer to Don on other stuff here. But I know I've responded to a couple of things around that. I will take questions. I also see a note in here, so I don't know if someone's trying to say they want to be recognized. Let me just take a look.
It was just Jay saying he needed to depart.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Yeah, I'm not seeing it, but the thing is, the other thing I want to say is that while we'll engage to let people know that they are in a area that they shouldn't be, I'm not going to go all out and ask them to move along. I think we've talked about this, so I just want to put that out there. I don't know if there was any position change, but at this point we haven't had to because nobody was there by the time we got out there. But I just want to put it on everybody's radar, including the councils, that we are going to see this again, and we're going to have to deal with it. Camping is going to happen in the city. It doesn't matter if you have an encampment policy or not. And I just want to lay that out because we're getting there. And at some point, I'm trying to remember if we talked about looking at that policy again to refine it or if we'd already refined it. Sorry. Does anyone remember?
Zach, if I might, so
Right,
we
go on.
discussed amending the policy, especially, in advance of this next season. We
I
have
agree.
not done that yet or taken that up.
Okay.
So we certainly could.
Yeah, I'd say, yeah, and I want to just say that it comes from a collaborative point of view, as it always has been. It's not, you know, um, it's not anything bad at all. We try to respond, by the way, as quickly as we can. I'm gonna have to form another email so I know I get it when I get it, because I didn't get the last one for a couple days. So by the time we responded, it probably was a day or two later, which needs to be worked on from here. Okay. Any questions on
Yeah.
street out? I'm sorry, Tori.
Yeah, the apropos of refining the encampment process policy, there was a point last summer when the Country Club Road, I think was, I'm probably not remembering this entirely accurately, but Country
Okay.
Club Road was suddenly declared to be a highly sensitive area and
Mhm.
people could not camp there. And at that point, we collectively wrote a letter to City Council asking, I think our intention was to ask that be looked at very carefully, given the lack of other places for people to be, that also that the policy be looked at again and that we get some clarity about what makes some place a highly sensitive area and what can people do to appeal a place that has been declared a highly sensitive area if there's a thought that maybe it isn't. I can figure, I don't know off the top of my head what happened to that letter, other than I think that a crisis came and we didn't actually finish the letter and the letter never got sent, is what I think happened. But if somebody remembers more accurately,
No.
that would be great to know. But I think we ought to pick that up again.
Okay.
I mean, you can't, if we have, when we have people sleeping on doors, I don't think we can refine a policy too many times. We can, it could probably stand some more refinement.
Okay. I appreciate
you.
that. Tori, Sophie.
My memory is that, and this could be totally wrong, is that it kind of got included in the bigger letter that we sent to the council. So I feel like it might have gotten lost. I think it would be really important to revisit it and, we have 45 minutes now. Maybe we can start talking about it now. I mean, there was something in Front Porch Forum the other day, like indicating that there's plenty of places for people to stay. And Tori, your response to that was beautiful, but it just makes me realize that like there's so much misinformation in the community about what is available, what isn't available. And I think, I know we have our community outreach committee. I don't, if there's something, I don't know if there's an update from that, but I think it would be great to revisit a really strong encampment policy. I mean, all we can do is propose something, Thank
Okay.
you.
And I will take Tori again, and then I have something to add. Go ahead, Tori.
I just want to say quickly for people who may not have lived in the area as long or who don't work in social services, the person who wrote the letter saying, "Oh, there were enough places for people to stay," was the district director of DCF for many years in Barry, the Barry district director from in DCF, and I don't, that's all I can say. I mean, I don't know what she was thinking when she wrote that, but that's who that individual was.
Okay. I mean, I wouldn't mind having that discussion in our 45, but I did want to address another thing that Times Argus had put out that I think is relevant here, and that is that that they were looking at, I guess one of the, I don't know if it was one of the commissions here was looking at, as I recall, a emergency shelter location here in, Meredith. I see your hand up.
You can keep talking over to me. I'm trying to just find out definitively what we did send in the fall, because I do
Okay, I
believe that
appreciate
I
that.
do believe that we did make a statement to
I think we did.
recommendations to council, and I want to get that for you and forward it along.
Okay, appreciate that. I was saying that the Montpelier emergency shelter seemed to be getting addressed. But there was a question of actual need and all that jazz. I didn't know if anyone else had anything to add.
Are you talking about the one of the liquor control board?
That's correct.
Liquor
control, yeah.
I can tell you what I think I know, but I don't know how.
Well, that's the problem, right? So, yeah, okay.
Well, I mean, I can tell you what I know. I can tell you that that's a state-owned building that was one of the buildings that's previously been offered to providers as a location. And Good Samaritan has looked at it repeatedly, but as you know, like the high school, it floods dramatically. And it currently is only able to house 10 people. It would be an amazing building if it weren't where it is. But the real issue is that right now it's only authorized for 10 individuals. And so my assumption would be is the state would like to have that on the ready in case it is needed for additional overflow during a weather event or winter emergency or whatever. So I think they just probably want their ducks in a row to make that piece of property available. So that's kind of an assumption, but that's what I'm thinking.
You know what's fun, Meredith? You always bring the other side of it because I was thinking it'd be great, and then you mentioned the flooding thing. And
it's an amazing. I mean, it's not the first amazing building I looked at, but
I'm like, we have our problem solved, maybe.
It's also
yeah.
Yeah, no, it's also hemmed in by the railroad and the highway. So we've already thought about what evacuation would look there and everything. So, but anyways, so I'm glad the state is doing that because I think it's great to have it online and ready to go if it's needed.
Okay. Which amazing building is it?
Sorry.
If you take the bike path out past the high school, it's the last building on the left-hand side, the brick building, just past the red warehouse.
Yeah. Okay, that's why I wanted to bring it up because I was just curious, and it sounds like, well, okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, okay. So that's all I wanted to really bring up on that, and I would be open to the idea of discussing the other subject that we were talking about here. I don't know if anyone wants to tee that off. The subject, what were we talking? We were talking about what were we talking about before this? I
think we were talking about whether or not we had or had not responded in a meaningful way about Country Club Road in the fall. Is that right?
I don't know. I think that's it.
And the camping policy.
Yeah, okay.
Relating to the camping.
And I'm still looking real quick. Give me a second to figure out what we delivered and when.
I see an email, Meredith, from you from October, I think when the city reissued the policy. So maybe maybe our response was to that. I don't remember now either.
Okay. All right.
Unfortunately, I don't remember either. Partly because I was in this meeting and of course the council meetings, and I may be conflating them, but I think there are two separate policies, if I'm not mistaken. The policy that Tori was originally talking about is I believe it's the use policy.
Oh, at Country Club.
For Country Club, which then includes reference to camping, and then there, I believe, is a separate policy on camping. And I think, I mean, I know at one point we reviewed, we were on schedule to review those. Both. I'm not sure that we actually did the full review that we intended on the encampment policy, but it can always be revisited. It would be helpful to have the recommendations of this group.
Yep. Which is why we want to revisit that.
So, sorry, are you talking more broadly about the encampment policy, or are you talking about what I think Tori was talking about, which was the fall response to Country Club Road?
Last summer, we were certainly looking at Country Club Road becoming a highly sensitive area. And I think we're looking more broadly from that to what is actually the encampment policy. I can also, I'm very foolishly making soup at the same time as I'm taking part in the meeting. And but the things I actually have to use my hands for, I'm going to be done with in about a minute, at which point I will also look in my email and see if I can find the letter, or at least I can try to find, I can find the draft. I have drafts on my computer of what we wrote,
So I'm
if that
sent,
helps.
so I can send you what we sent on September 21, which was kind of a twofold statement. It was a letter, which included some concerns for the council, and then a report and some recommendations, and these all kind of centered around Country Club Road. But I haven't looked at them in detail yet to see, so I'm sending that to you all right now as a refresher, that went out. But we can look more closely at it to see if we had specific recommendations in there regarding the encampment policy specifically.
Okay.
I can see, at least just from a quick view, that it does invite us to revise the encampment policy with a focus on a few different things. It asks to establish a team to provide safe camping locations. It calls, and it kind of talks about the current challenges. That's the one. And then the other was I think the letter that Tori primarily worked on. That has a specific statement about the encampment policy as well, and the role of the task force. So I feel like we have a baseline for work here and some recommendations that were already sent to council that we could probably push off from.
Okay. Yeah.
Meredith, is the actual policy in the email that you just sent?
No, the policy's on the website, on our webpage.
Yes, no, yeah, I just wasn't sure if it was also in that. Okay. Does anybody want me to send them the policy? Because I just was able to quickly find it. I see Bev nodding, maybe. Okay.
And speaking of encampment policies, I'm noting that around us in Vermont, that other communities are starting to come up with their own encampment policies, which I will research after we're done and get it over to y'all.
Yeah,
Just,
I saw Middlebury just enacted, like officially enacted one, and I could only find a draft of it. I couldn't find what was the finished one. So I think it'd be great to take a look at what they've done.
And did you know Northfield also has one, I believe?
No, I didn't know that. That'd be great.
So I will be researching that for folks.
Zach, just for meeting minute clarity, which
Yes.
item would this discussion be under?
This discussion would we are under updates right now, but
Okay. And then maybe just a suggestion, we might want to bring this forward as a specific item
we
on
can.
the agenda.
Yep. Yeah, we just have to come up with we'll come up with a name for it and throw it in there, I guess. With no objection, Tori?
That sounds great.
There'll be a contest on creative names for the item. Just kidding. That was good. Yep. All right. So what are we doing right now? We're just reviewing documents. Sorry.
Sorry, we could actually call it old business. I mean, it is old business, like old business that we kind of archaeologically
Yep.
dug out.
Yes, going forward though, if we could, yeah, okay, we could do that. We're looking for something going forward. That's okay. The one thing I will note is that we're talking about two different policies that kind of, like Sal said, I think are part of it. The encampment policy and the country club use policy. Um, I'm assuming people are reviewing documents.
So will this document be available to view at a later time?
This document can be available anytime, and as I understand, this document is on the encampment document is on the on our homelessness task force page, and also I think the use document is on the city page somewhere. Correct, Kelly? Okay, so actually, what I can do is, if folks, it's helpful, either someone can look it up now, or I can send those folks a copy of that of the country club use document as well. My understanding is the country club use document, just to give some context, right now is around no camping there, period. Correct, Kelly?
That's right. And the intent of this use policy was not necessarily to respond to camping at Country Club Road. The timing on it was a little wonky though, because we were experiencing some just issues on that site that we were working through. We had intended to bring forward a use of Country Club Road to really identify, what the uses are and what was acceptable. And in terms of camping, we have not officially condoned camping at that site. And so this is just reflective of what we've done historically at that location. But I'm going to just drop the Country Club use policy in the chat, so you have it.
Appreciate that.
Zach, I think Tori has a question.
I think most people remember it had come up last summer because there were some people peaceably camping on Country Club Road, and then some other people were moved there at I don't know, at the advice of the police, at the advice of the city, at the advice of the police clinician. I'm not really sure, but which Kelly very bravely spoke up about at city council. And at that point, the reaction was everybody got cleared from the site, both the people who were making trouble and the people who were simply camping. And at least one of the people who had been camping and not particularly making trouble then started a hunger strike on city hall steps and so on and so forth. That was from one point of view anyway, that was the context in which we were saying, because the whole area got, kind of part of the pretty extreme reaction was that the whole area got declared a highly sensitive area, which then meant that you couldn't camp there. And so the campers were moved out, and then it became a place where camping was banned because it was a highly sensitive area. And I don't know in how nuanced a way that ever got examined after the fact, because my sense was that things happened pretty quickly.
Yeah, and it's yes, Kelly, sorry.
Just to kind of respond a little bit to that, not in terms of the recollection, but just in terms of sort of the policy component of this. Sort of the two things. We've got the encampment policy, which we did, designate that area as sensitive just based on that policy and based on what's in place. And we certainly, I think that's kind of what's up for discussion right now. And then in terms of just use of that space, we as a city have not officially condoned camping on that location. And, I think in large part just because we aren't able to staff it appropriately, to, clean up, instances, which there were several that we did need to clean up. So we're just trying to walk the line of figuring out what makes sense, how we can help people. Our intention is not to, give people a hard time. We, kind of in this instance, we're walking a really fine line between some folks that we did have knowledge of being at that location for most of the summer, really, and we did not engage. But the city's position has typically been that if there are behavioral issues at a location, then we will engage. And that's kind of where things ended up. And there are a couple of different things happening there for sure. And so I think that now is a good time to engage, on the discussion and just figure out, how we can support in a collaborative way. So, thanks for your comments, Tori, and, looking forward to just looking at the policy, and then just also, we do have the two policies in play right now. So, there's kind of a couple of different conversations to be had, but certainly timely.
Absolutely. Yeah, and also the country club property appears to be, moving along here, with the different things going on, planned to go on up there and all that. So this is definitely a good time. I think in general that we're going to need to continue to discuss the camping issue, because it doesn't. I wish it could magically go away. I wish we could open up a, robust place and just help everybody. But it doesn't go that way. And so that's why we hear, well, where are these guys? Where is everyone supposed to go? So, yeah, I think it's really important to have that conversation and awareness during this time. And also acknowledge, though, that the other thing I want to acknowledge is to my knowledge, if I get this wrong, please correct me, but we lost the embedded social worker, right? I think she was on her way out or is on her way out. So I wonder about the ability of, I'll get to you in a second, Sophie. I wonder about the ability of, because yeah, I'd read those reports that she posted, and I just wonder about those abilities of capacity and all that. Sophie, I'm going to take your hand. Go ahead.
I'm just wondering, in terms of kind of getting traction and feasibility, and maybe this is a question for Kelly, like, what do you think makes the most sense? Like, does it make sense for us to tackle the country club policy or the bigger encampment policy? And does it make sense to send like proposed revisions, or what would anybody suggest?
Beck, is it okay for me to respond?
It is okay for you to respond, and then I'd like to also respond. Go ahead, Kelly.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. So, I mean, I think, the encampment policy really is, I think, the policy that, is kind of, we're talking about here. I mean, we could talk about Country Club Road, but that has never been a location for camping. And so, we don't have the capacity to sort of say, yes, camping at this location. So I think in terms of maybe working through, what makes sense for, a community policy around camping would be good. I think also, one of the things that we've said before is that if we can identify locations, then maybe we can talk about it. The problem there is just the resource level. Like we do not have the resources and the capacity to handle camping in the city. And so we haven't seen a change in our resources. In fact, actually, it's gone in the opposite direction. So I guess that all I'll say is I think that it would be helpful if you might review the encampment policy and provide recommendations for staff to take a look at.
Okay, and I was going to briefly respond, and I'll get to you, Tori, in just a second. I think that, yeah, that's the question that we really needed to kind of ask here about the two, because we're talking about two different policies and realities of the Country Club Road. Not that, it. Yeah. So I think that we need to. Well, anyway, I will go with Tori for now. Thanks.
The one, a couple of things. One is, I'm curious, Kelly, this might be a question for you. I'm not sure, but if it's putting you on the spot, then make it not a question for you. What my understanding of the history is that there was, the group of people that were camping there for a lot of the summer who, from at least what I heard through the rumor mill, were pretty peaceful and cooperative. And then a second, and we're not creating behavioral issues. And then a second group of people got landed there later in the summer who, again, through the rumor mill, showed up with lots of behavioral issues. And that's when the whole site got cleared. And I'm just curious, I'm not sure what the word counterfactual means, but I think it's a cool word. If that second group hadn't gotten dropped there and there had been no behavioral issues all summer, do you think, would the city continue to leave people alone, just kind of taking care of themselves or doing whatever they were doing? And the second thing I want to raise is just that I'm sure everybody would agree that the city doesn't have the resources for camping, but we have to be providing a place for people to live. The only reason we have a significant number of people camping in the city is that we don't have adequate housing that people can afford and adequate support for them to stay in housing once they get it. And we can do one or the other. We can do what many cities and some countries have done and provide housing and provide adequate support for the housing. Or we're gonna have people camping. I mean, I know it's sort of absurd even to state that because we all know that, but that's really all. That's all I wanted to say.
All right, thank you. One of the responses I would have, and I would urge the committee as soon as I can research this as well, I was going to send the encampment policies from the others that I've discovered, and I'd just like to look at theirs. They're different. We're gonna argue, well, they're different, but there might be something contained in there that we haven't seen. I think it's gonna, continue to be a obstacle, or not obstacle, but an issue. this isn't going away. So, yeah, and I would urge people to also continue to review our current policies. Sophie?
This is probably really stupid that I didn't understand this before, but is it so unless there is staffing at a or some sort of resource at a camping location, it will be considered illegal or not supported? I don't think I'm asking this question the right way, but I guess I didn't realize that for the city to not do anything, that there has to be some level of staff or resource. Is that, I just want to make sure I'm understanding that. And it makes sense. I just it wasn't something that I understood before.
The good news is, Sophie, I see Kelly's hand for that. Kelly?
Yeah, I mean, we just, in terms of answering that, we don't feel comfortable condoning locations without adequate resources. And so that's just sort of the long and short of that. I mean, it just is. I mean, so I think we really, in order to have that conversation, need to have the full conversation around, the supports at that location. And then also just the basic logistics, like, just the sanitation and making sure that folks have access to, other needs like restrooms and, so it's trash, restrooms, services, that kind of thing. So we don't have the capacity for that at this time.
And so, and one of the problems for
Wait,
me is, I'm sorry.
Zach,
I-
sorry. Bev had her hand up and so did Sal.
Okay, I'm going to take Bev, and then we're going to go Sal, and then we're going to go me. Thank you.
Great, thanks Meredith. And thank you, Zach. So I feel like this is just like deja vu from last year. So we're over here giving out camping gear, and camping, come to find out, is illegal in Montpelier, but people are camping anyways. And this whole thing about lack of services, it's like literally the same conversation. I remember when I first joined the task force last spring. And I'm wondering, Zach, in Middlebury and in Northfield, if those camping policies were actually initiated by the city government, not by like a committee or an advocacy group. Like who came up with that? Who initiated that? Because I mean, we're just basically looking at the same thing this year as last year, it seems to me. I'm just curious because it would make the most sense for me. Yes, we can give recommendations, but the city come up with something that works for their resources and what they have. Something that is reasonable because people are going to be camping anyways. And it seems to me like it takes way more resources to move people off just to find, have them set up somewhere else. And then, clean up one campsite, then clean up another one and clean up another one. It's like, what are we trying to accomplish? Is, what question? That's the question that comes to mind for me.
Okay. Well, I got a lineup going on here. So we're going to go with Sal, and I'm going to defer mine after Sal to someone else here. But go ahead.
Well, yeah, I
Lex.
just wanted to say that I mean, Kelly has characterized the encampment policy as walking a fine line, and that's a pretty good way to describe it. I mean, it's really I mean, in plain terms, it's a look the other way if there's no problem. But it comes short of actually sanctioning, of actually declaring an encampment area, which would be problematic because then it would require the city to provide services. As it is now, the city recognizes it does not have the resources, people, money to manage a sanctioned camping area. But we also recognize that people need a place to be. And so we allow it in quotes, unless there's an issue. And then when there's an issue, we have to deal with it. the question that arose last summer was, why was the entire encampment cleared when it was really, when everybody knew it was just a couple of individuals? And that really begs the question of a sanctioned camping area versus a sort of unofficial look the other way policy, until we can get, until we can get help, and do something more proactively. So, I mean, that's kind of where we are. And yes, it is very deja vu-like, because, the situation from the point of view of the city's resources has not changed.
Okay, we're gonna go in order still, going with Nolan next, please.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to say, I really appreciate this aspect of the conversation. I feel like I've just been trying to answer this question myself, and the last year or so, and I've been elbow to elbow with homeless people every day at Another Way, and I've interviewed some. And I've just made some simple observations about how people are surviving. And there's a difference between someone who's discreetly camping privately alone deep in the woods, or even someone who's just alone, like off the side of the road in Hubbard Park. It's just a matter of discretion and not blowing up the spot. And so it's curious because we live in this homeless pandemic that's nationwide and statewide, and regionally people are making physical moves around. And so, depending on what class you're from, depending on what socioeconomic, perspective you have, it just seems like at some point we feel like we're either being our territory is being encumbered upon at some point, or we want to invent that new shelter or be that volunteer. So we all have different responses and reactions to a problem that I think in the long run is going to help our community see humanity in a better way. Hopefully, that's my intent here. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, and Meredith, and then I'm gonna go. And I see a question in the chat from Tori, but I'll defer to Meredith, or go to Meredith, and then I'm gonna go. Thanks.
I just wanted to kind of take us back to where I think the work of the task force ought to be, which is in the policy and revising the policy, because when we get into we're not going to practice the policy. The policy is guidance so that both city and street outreach understand the boundaries of how this is going to work. And our job is to help craft a policy that creates enough space to allow people to camp sometimes, and allows the city to say, I can, that camper is that under the policy, that camper is doing okay over there, and I can let that, I can just, that person can be. And I think the more we try to get into what the practice is, especially without the people who are practicing it in the room, we're getting too far in the weeds. I would much rather focus on how do we create a policy that is supportive of the users, of how it impacts the users. How does the policy impact the campers? How does it impact the city? How does it impact the providers? And really try and find the sweet spot on that, because the more we try to build something super structured, the closer we're going to get to a structured encampment, and then we're going to start bumping back up against those resource problems, right? So I'm just going to advocate for us to say, how do we get from this conversation to okay, we're looking at the policy together, and we're starting to pinpoint locations where we can make improvements to recommend to staff and council.
Okay, and I just wanted to add at some point, not today, because we have less than 15 or so minutes. I've always been curious, and maybe I had my earwax in my ears over the last 3 years, but I've always been curious, and so has my outreach colleagues and a few other people, about what goes into, sensitive. We think we know what it is, but we really don't. And I think there is room in this policy also to define the roles that have been confusing from the outreach side. I'm speaking from my volunteer side. I'm not, but I will say that the confusion would be, language. Whose role is what, in a sense, because in the original language, it was up to the city to coordinate, from what I understand, through calling peers to come in to do this, but it was not clear as to, some of us have had an objection with how we were supposed to carry out the situation. And I think there's room in the policy to look at that and roles in general. And I don't think we should get too deep into it. We should see it as guidance as well. And Tori had a observation. What happened with the police social worker? Is it the individual left? Has position disappeared? The second, should we be responding as a task force? My understanding is that program came to an end, but I could be wrong. Is that what I understand? That had nothing to do with the city, from what I understand. Am I correct? I hope. I think that's because that's what I've heard, is that that ended. So
That's what I've also heard, or
Yeah.
that it was just an end of the funding opportunity.
right, it really wasn't, the city, and I think I think you're gonna feel that. Regardless. But yeah, that's what I understand. And task force responding to what, Tori? I don't know if you're still with us or if you've taken off.
No, yeah, I'm really sorry to hear that. And I think that some of the other communities still have a person in, and they actually were advertising recently for a embedded police person in Barrie, actually Washington. It was on the Washington Mental Health Open Jobs list. So I don't know if somehow Montpelier got dropped from that project or what happened, but I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry to hear that happened. And I do kind of wonder whether we should respond as a task force in terms of the impact on the community and on people served by the program.
I wasn't aware of the Barrie one with Washington County. Because
I don't know. I've been looking out for a job for my daughter. So
because what I had heard was that the whole thing had kind of ended. The funding stream had ended with that partnership. So it wasn't just Montpelier, from what I could see. But now I'm hearing something different. So this is where it gets fun, right?
I would take what I'm saying about it with a cup of salt, because
that's fine. No, I like salt. So that's great. I wanted to add something, if no one else has their hands up. I'm really going to say that, the resources are going to be impacted. And I do see us playing a huge role in the weaknesses that we see. So we definitely could, be ready to respond to the weaknesses in various ways. Sophie?
I wanted to say, I don't know, Zach, if you and Tori are going to, let me start over. I think it would be great if we could, at the next meeting, have some suggested changes or recommendations for the encampment policy. And if you and Tori or any group of people are going to work on that, I would be happy to be part of that discussion.
Sure. And I would encourage people to review the current policy and submit those, be ready to discuss in next meeting. We'll throw that in that agenda item that Kelly recommended. Tori, you still have your hand up?
Yeah, no, Sophie, if you, the outreach committee's meeting, I think at two-ish on Monday, this coming
Yeah.
Monday. I don't know if there's any chance that you're free then, but we could always subvert that meeting and, do some work,
Yeah.
to say if you're concerned, anybody concerned about the encampment policy, try to come then and do some work on that at that meeting, since that
That
meeting's on the
2
books
o'clock
already.
on the 21st works for me. So
Yes,
yeah.
right, yeah.
Right. We
Yeah,
work really
but
hard.
does anybody else in that meeting feel okay about subverting part of it to that purpose?
I have no objection, and Dawn's not here.
And
But Beth
I'm
is
in
here.
that committee too, and I think that's a great idea.
Great, okay,
I
super.
I would just like to be an advocate that the recommendations that were already provided to council in the fall be part of that as well.
Yes, absolutely,
Absolutely.
totally.
We're not into throwing them out. But this has been really productive. We're coming up on 5 minutes. And so I just wanted to see if there was any announcements anyone have. Okay. And I just want to let y'all know that it's always been a pleasure to work with y'all. And we'll continue to work together. And Tori, we can meet offline to discuss logistics as always. And if y'all have any ideas about how we should do things, please let us know. I've always been open, as Sophie found out the other night when she emailed me. And I do try to respond as quick as I can. Okay.
And also if people have agenda items, because I think one of the things that would be good for us to do is to send, just, remind people a week or so ahead of time.
Now,
I think Ken used to do that, to say, get agenda items in by like Friday or something.
There's a deadline of that was requested by the city that I would like to let people know of, that people who are Tori and I from going forward would be submitting our warning to the city on Wednesday by close of business. So just so folks are aware of that, if the Wednesday before the meeting, if we could, they did say they could do it a little bit later, but they preferred Wednesday for that. So if y'all have agenda items, please throw them at us. Otherwise, I'm going to give you your time back now. I appreciate y'all coming in, and it's always been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
Second. Okay. I have Nolan in a second.
Second.
Thank you very much. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, abstaining. Well, great luck. We'll see you next time. And Tori and I will talk offline and see the outreach committee on Monday. Thanks. Let's see what's going on here.
Hey, Zach, real quick.